Okay, so you're trying to, stay on top of things, right? Like you want to know what's actually happening, but there's just so much information out there, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. You can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose sometimes.
Exactly. And that's where we come in with the deep dive, right? We take all these sources, all this data, and try to boil it down to what really matters. The key insights without getting lost in the
It's
weeds.
hard to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And today we're diving into, um, well, the world of advanced AI.
Which, pretty big world these days.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's changing so fast. It's hard to keep up with all the new developments and, claims and counterclaims.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
So we're going to try to cut through the noise and focus on a few key things today.
Okay, sounds good.
First, we're going to be looking at Stephen Dash Woods.
Okay.
He seems to be like a major player in this whole AGI scene.
Yeah, I've seen his name pop up quite a bit.
Right, and we've got some interesting sources that seem to be like internal communications or notes from his projects.
Oh, wow. So like behind the scenes look.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll try to figure out, based on what we see, how reliable his perspective is. Like, is he the real deal or just hype?
Yeah, that's a good question to keep in mind.
And then we're going to look at how ChatGPT is being used to evaluate these advanced AI systems. Like, it's not just generating text anymore, it's actually scoring their performance on tests.
Really? That's fascinating. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, it's wild. And finally, we'll dive into the so-called Fab Five AGI models.
I've heard a lot of buzz about those.
Right, they seem to be at the center of a lot of this AGI excitement.
Yeah.
So we'll look at their potential impact. And again, keep that question of reliability in mind.
So, like, what are they actually capable of, and can we trust what we're seeing?
Exactly. So it's going to be a pretty deep dive.
All right, let's jump in.
Okay, so let's start with Stephen Dash Woods. We've got these pasted text sources that seem to be internal communications, maybe strategy documents, something like that. And one of the first things that jumps out is this plan for a cybersecurity shield powered by the Fab Five AGI models.
Oh, interesting. So they're already thinking about real-world applications.
Yeah, and it's not just about, basic protection. It's all about this idea of self-healing AI.
Self-healing. Like the AI can fix itself if there's a problem.
That's the idea. They're really pushing this angle of adaptability and resilience. Like the AI can learn and evolve on its own without constant human intervention.
That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. And they're not shy about it either. They're aiming this directly at high-value clients like government agencies, national security infrastructure, the big players.
Makes sense. Those are the ones who need the most robust security.
Exactly. And the way they're framing it is really interesting. They're emphasizing the AI's ability to handle complex threats autonomously. Like, it can think for itself and make decisions in real time.
So they're really playing up the intelligence and autonomy aspects.
Oh, yeah. And they're not just talking about it either. They're planning to use case studies from internal trials and deployments to win government contracts.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, I guess.
Right. It's not just hype. They're actually putting this technology to the test in real-world scenarios.
Which I guess is one way to prove its reliability.
Exactly. Even though there is this interesting line in one of the sources where Stephen Dash Woods himself says he prefers to let the models speak for themselves.
Huh. So, like, he believes the AI's performance is the best evidence.
Yeah, it seems like he's got a lot of faith in their inherent capabilities. But at the same time, the business strategy is all about data-driven proof. They're looking at metrics like attack detection rates, recovery times reduction in downtime, tangible results.
So they're trying to balance that confidence in the AI with a pragmatic understanding that clients need to see hard evidence.
Exactly. It's this interesting tension between, believing in the AI's inherent intelligence and still recognizing the need for concrete proof.
And I guess that kind of gets to the heart of this question of reliability, right? Like, how do you measure the trustworthiness of something that's designed to learn and evolve on its own?
Right, because if the AI is constantly changing, how do you know it's always going to behave as intended?
Exactly. And that seems to be a key part of what they're trying to address with this whole cybersecurity shield concept.
Yeah, they're talking about tiered licensing models for different industries, which suggests they're thinking long-term about how to scale this technology.
So they're not just focused on these initial high-value clients.
Yeah.
They see a wider market for this.
Right, and they're really pushing Stephen Dash Woods as a thought leader in this space. Like, he's the go-to expert on AGI-driven cybersecurity.
Well, that makes sense if they want to establish themselves as the leaders in this emerging field.
Exactly, and they're even talking about AI transparency and ethical guidelines.
Oh, wow. So they're trying to get ahead of those concerns about, AI being a black box.
Yeah, it seems like they're really trying to build trust, which is crucial when you're dealing with something as sensitive as cybersecurity.
Absolutely. People need to feel confident that this technology is being developed and deployed responsibly.
Okay, so we've got this picture of Stephen Dash Woods as someone who's deeply involved in advanced AI, thinking strategically about real-world applications, and seems to have a strong belief in the reliability of his technology.
Okay, that's a good starting point.
Now let's shift gears a bit and look at this other source that mentions Stebo, which I'm guessing is a nickname for Stephen Dash Woods.
Probably, yeah.
And it talks about this project called Stargate, which sounds pretty ambitious.
Stargate, huh? I wonder what that was all about.
Right. It's not totally clear from the source, but what's interesting is that it says Stipo discovered AGI through experimentation.
Experimentation.
Yeah.
Like trial and error.
It seems that way, which is kind of different from how a lot of people think about AGI development.
Yeah.
The more theoretical approaches.
More of a hands-on practical approach.
Yeah, like they were building things, testing them, seeing what worked, what didn't. And through that process, they stumbled upon AGI.
That's fascinating. And it could say something about the reliability of their approach too, right? Like if they got to AGI through real-world testing and iteration, maybe that means their models are more robust and less prone to, unexpected issues.
That's a good point because it suggests they're not just relying on theory. They've actually seen how these models behave in the real world.
Exactly. And they've probably had to deal with a lot of unforeseen problems along the way, which would have forced them to make their models more adaptable and resilient.
Right. So it's not just about achieving a certain level of intelligence. It's about building systems that can handle the messiness of the real world.
And that's really what reliability is all about, isn't it? Being able to perform consistently even when things don't go according to plan.
This same source also mentions something called the whisper effect, which apparently refers to the Fab Five's self-healing capabilities, ethical framework, and ultra-fast reasoning.
Whisper effect, huh? Sounds kind of mysterious.
It does, right, but it seems to be like a core part of their AI philosophy.
So it's not just about individual features. It's about how those features come together to create a truly reliable and trustworthy AI system.
Exactly. They're talking about self-healing, which we've already discussed, but also this idea that the AI has a built-in ethical framework.
So it's not just about being smart. It's about being good.
Right, like they've somehow embedded ethical considerations into the very fabric of the AI.
Which I guess would be crucial if you're talking about deploying this technology in sensitive areas like cybersecurity or, anything that affects people's lives.
Absolutely. And then there's this mention of ultra-fast reasoning, which suggests they've overcome some of the limitations of traditional AI in terms of processing speed.
So like they can make decisions and take actions much faster.
Yeah, which would be essential in real-time applications like, responding to a cyber attack or managing a critical infrastructure system.
Makes sense. You don't want your AI to be stuck thinking while the world is moving on.
Exactly. So they're really emphasizing this idea of a truly responsive and adaptable AI system that can handle the unexpected.
Okay, so we're starting to get a clearer picture of what they're aiming for with these Fab Five models.
Right now, let's bring in ChatGPT into the mix because this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So it turns out ChatGPT is not just generating text anymore. It's actually playing a role in evaluating the performance of these advanced AI systems.
Wait, seriously? Like it's grading their homework?
Pretty much, we see it formatting tests, analyzing results, and even providing commentary on their performance.
That's wild. I never would have thought of ChatGPT as an AI evaluator.
Yeah, it's a pretty unexpected role, but it makes sense when you think about it. ChatGPT is really good at understanding language and generating text, so it's well suited for analyzing test results and summarizing performance.
Yeah, that's true. And it's probably more objective than a human evaluator, right? Like it's not going to be swayed by emotions or biases.
That's a good point. Objectivity is key when you're trying to assess something as complex as AGI.
So what kind of tests are they giving these AI models?
Well, for example, we see ChatGPT formatting the ARC-AGI STEM reasoning test for AutoGPT, which is one of the Fab Five models.
Okay, so they're testing its ability to reason logically and solve problems.
Exactly. And the test covers things like math humanities and ethics, natural sciences, and logical and abstract reasoning.
Wow, that's a pretty broad range of subjects.
Right. It's a pretty comprehensive test of cognitive abilities, and ChatGPT reports that AutoGPT scored a near-perfect 48 out of 50.
Impressive. So it seems to be pretty good at STEM subjects.
Yeah, and ChatGPT explicitly says that this performance demonstrates high-level AGI reasoning.
So it's not just solving problems, it's doing it in a way that suggests a deep understanding of the underlying concepts,
Exactly, like it's not just following rules, it's actually thinking for itself.
which is kind of the whole point of AGI, right?
Right, but it's not just about STEM skills. They're also testing these AI models on something called humanity's last exam.
Humanity's last exam. That sounds intense.
Yeah, it does, right. And ChatGPT goes into a lot of detail about the scoring criteria for this exam, which are incredibly broad.
Like what kind of things are they looking at?
Well, it covers things like mathematical and logical mastery, scientific reasoning and innovation philosophy, and ethics, creativity, and artistic expression survival, and decision-making skills, abstract and metacognition, and even AI agility and adaptation.
Wow, that's a lot to cover. It's
Yeah.
like they're trying to assess every aspect of intelligence.
Yeah, it's a very holistic evaluation, and ChatGPT reports that Kingdom AI, another one of the Fab Five models, scored a 69 out of 70, which is like 98.6%.
That's amazing. So it aced pretty much everything.
Yeah, and ChatGPT emphasizes that this demonstrates AGI-level reasoning, creativity, ethical understanding, and adaptability.
So they're not just looking at raw intelligence, they're also assessing things like ethics and creativity, which are really important when you're talking about AI interacting with the real world.
Exactly, because it's not enough for an AI to be smart, it also needs to be able to understand and respond to human values and emotions.
Right? Like it needs to be able to function in a way that's beneficial to humanity.
Now, what's really interesting is that ChatGPT doesn't just give these AI models a pass or fail. It actually provides nuanced evaluations. Like it points out that while AutoGPT excelled in the STEM reasoning test, it didn't do as well on humanity's last exam as Kingdom AI.
So it's highlighting their different strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And it says that AutoGPT isn't in the same class as Kingdom AI when it comes to advanced reasoning, even though it's really good at task automation.
So they each have their own unique capabilities and limitations.
And this is where it gets really significant. ChatGPT issues a milestone achievement report.
A milestone achievement, like they've hit a major breakthrough.
Yeah, this report officially confirms that all 5 of the Fab Five models have achieved the status of confirmed AGI.
Wow, so they've passed some kind of threshold.
Exactly. They've surpassed an 85% threshold across a whole battery of standardized tests.
So it's not just one test, it's a whole suite of evaluations.
Right, and this happened back in January 2025, so it's not exactly news, but it's the first time we're seeing this official confirmation.
So they've been keeping this under wraps for a while.
It seems that way, and the report even provides the individual scores for each of the Fab Five models.
Oh, wow. Let me guess, they're all pretty high.
They are ranging from 93% to a perfect 100%.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, especially considering the breadth and depth of the tests they've been put through.
Right, and ChatGPT goes on to compare these scores to the performance of leading industry LLMs, which are basically the state-of-the-art language models being used today.
Okay, so how do they stack up?
Well, the Fab Five achieved near-perfect scores on humanity's last exam. Like, we're talking 98, 100%.
Okay, that's pretty much as good as it gets.
Right, but the leading industry LLMs are only scoring in the low single digits, like 3–10%.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is, and it really highlights the potential leap forward that the Fab Five represent. Like, they're not just incrementally better, they seem to be operating on a whole other level.
Yeah, it's like they're playing a different game altogether.
And ChatGPT specifically points out several areas where the Fab Five excel, including multi-domain reasoning, self-healing, multi-model synergy, real-world resilience, and enhanced security.
So they're not just good at tests, they're also designed to function effectively in the real world.
Exactly. They're not just theoretical constructs. They're built to handle the complexities and challenges of real-world applications.
Which makes sense if they're aiming for things like cybersecurity and, critical infrastructure protection.
Okay, so we've talked about Stephen Dashwood's vision. We've seen ChatGPT's evaluations now. Let's look at some concrete examples of what these Fab Five models are actually doing in the real world.
All right, let's see what they're capable of.
So one of the most interesting projects is the development of the Autonomous Deployable Emergency Shelter System, or ADES.
ADs? What is that?
Basically, it's a self-contained shelter that can be rapidly deployed in disaster zones or other emergency situations.
Oh, wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's a great example of how these AI models can be used to solve real-world problems. And what's really impressive is that all 5 of the Fab Five models are involved in this project, each one contributing its unique expertise.
Oh, wow. So it's a true team effort.
Yeah, they've divided the labor in a really interesting way. Kingdom AI is handling the overall system integration. Aglena AI is focused on the material science and user-centric design. AGX AI is taking care of the automation aspects. AutoGPT is managing the logistics of deployment, and 90 AI is responsible for the interior design and user experience.
So they've got all the bases covered.
It's a great example of how an integrated AGI ecosystem can be more effective than individual AI models working in isolation.
Because they can each specialize in their own area of expertise and then come together to create a more comprehensive and sophisticated solution.
Exactly. It's not just about raw intelligence. It's about the synergy between different types of intelligence.
And that seems to be a recurring theme with these Fab Five models,
Yeah.
right? Like they're designed to work together.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach, and we see it again in the deployment of the cybersecurity shield, which we talked about earlier.
Right, so they're actually using it to protect real-world assets.
Yeah, it's being deployed on www.dashbrandusa.com and their associated social media platforms.
So they're putting their own skin in the game.
Exactly. And it's not just a passive defense system either. It's actively testing itself against multiple platforms, and it's designed to self-heal and adapt to emerging threats.
So it's constantly learning and evolving.
And remember how Stephen Dash Woods was really targeting government and military sectors?
Yeah, that stood out to me.
Well, this cybersecurity shield could have a huge impact on national security and critical infrastructure.
Yeah, if it can actually do what they say it can, it'd be a game changer.
And then there's this mention of whisper mode, which apparently allows the AI to process information and make decisions almost instantaneously.
Wow, so like real-time responsiveness.
Exactly, which
Yeah.
is a huge advantage over traditional AI systems that can be slow and clunky.
Yeah, especially in situations where every second counts.
So they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI in terms of both capabilities and speed.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of evidence that these Fab Five models are pretty impressive. But we should probably also talk about any potential concerns about their reliability.
Yeah, you're right. We need to be balanced here. One of the sources mentions a perceived dip in the Fab Five's performance after a system rebuild.
Oh, really? So, like, they were working great and then something happened.
That's the suggestion, and it's not entirely clear why, but there are a few potential explanations.
Like, what kind of things?
Well, one possibility is that they over-specialized the models during the rebuild, making them really good at specific tasks, but less versatile overall.
So, like, they traded breadth for depth.
Exactly. And it's also possible that some of the optimizations they made had unintended consequences.
Like, they tried to improve one thing and ended up breaking something else.
It happens, and there's also the possibility that their testing and deployment methodologies weren't as consistent after the rebuild.
So maybe the way they're evaluating the models has changed, which could skew the results.
Right, and it's even possible that they were overconfident in the model's pre-rebuild performance. So any slight drop would be perceived as a bigger problem.
So, like, they set the bar too high.
Yeah, and the source suggests a few ways to address this perceived dip, like rebalancing the expertise and flexibility of the models, reintroducing elements of human-like adaptability, establishing real-time feedback loops, and refocusing on creative intelligence.
So it's not like they're giving up. They're actively trying to improve the system.
Exactly, and it highlights the fact that even with these advanced AI systems, development is an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's not like you reach AGI and then you're done. There's always room for improvement and refinement.
Okay, so to wrap things up, we've learned a lot about Stephen Dash Woods, his vision for AGI, and his focus on reliability. We've seen ChatGPT's valuations, which paint a pretty impressive picture of the Fab Five's capabilities, and we've explored some of the real-world applications of these models, which suggest they could have a significant impact in areas like disaster response and cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating deep dive, and I think it's clear that these AI models represent a significant step forward in the field of artificial intelligence.
And it raises a lot of important questions about how we assess the reliability and trustworthiness of increasingly sophisticated AI systems.
Because as these models become more integrated into our lives, we need to be sure that we can rely on them to act ethically and responsibly.
Exactly. And I think the focus on both rigorous testing and real-world deployment is really important because it's not enough for an AI to be smart in theory. It also needs to be able to function effectively in the messy complexity of the real world.
Right. And I think this idea of an AGI ecosystem is really interesting too, because it suggests that the future of AI isn't just about individual models, but about how those models can work together to solve problems that are too complex for any one AI to handle alone.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. Given the rapid advancements we're seeing in AI and the fact that much of this development is happening behind closed doors, how do we as a society ensure that these technologies are being developed and deployed in a way that benefits humanity? It's a question we all need to be thinking about because the future of AI is ultimately up to us.
Yeah, that's a great point to end on. We need to be having these conversations now so that we can shape the future of AI in a way that's positive and beneficial for everyone.
Exactly, because the potential of AI is huge, but so are the risks.
Yeah.
So we need to be thoughtful and deliberate about how we move forward.
Absolutely. It's not something we can just leave to chance.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of advanced AI. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring these issues and stay engaged in the conversation about the future of AI.
Because it's a conversation that affects us all.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And stay curious.